detail into this piece, so let's look at how you can make the most of this to get a really shocking result. I've decided to pre-paint the teeth and gums with artist's acrylic paint to speed up the application and the painting process on the model. I clean off any excess powder with isopropyl alcohol on a cotton swab. When this is fully dry, I paint on a layer of prosthetic adhesive as a primer for the paint. Once that is dry, I start with the gums, giving them a rich purple rose color. Get the paint into all the edges and creases of the gum area. Don't worry if you get a bit on the teeth. This can be cleaned off with alcohol and will also be painted over anyway. When painting the teeth, please bear in mind that nearly no one's teeth are truly white. You can see that the base color I use is substantially darker than the white of this card. That being the case, I will also be using other colors and tones to get a more realistic result. Hold a piece of white card up against your own teeth to get an idea of just how off-white they really are. Teeth often exhibit yellows, browns, greens, blues, and grays within them, especially at the line where they meet the gums. The basic prosthetic application techniques I will be using here are much the same as in our other videos, but I'll go over them here for completeness sake. I first offer up the appliance to decide on the exact position I would like it in. Then, while gently holding the appliance in place, I dust over it with a loaded powder puff. This leaves a subtle shadow of where I need to apply the adhesive and an outline for placing the appliance back onto the actor's face. I have applied a thin film of adhesive to the inside of the appliance, staying about 12 millimeters from the edges. You must be careful that these don't get adhesive on them and stick down before you're ready. The appliance is designed to fit around the nostril and to pick up on the lip line. Follow the line in the gap between the teeth and the wound and line this up with the performer's natural mouth line on the left side of their face. Go around the appliance with adhesive on a cotton bud and thoroughly apply adhesive under the edge of the appliance. Work outward so as not to fold an edge under. Press the edges down and brush over them with a very thin film of adhesive to make sure the finest edges are fully adhered to the skin. I'm using a clear makeup sealer over the appliance and surrounding skin before I begin to paint. This provides me with a uniform material on which to apply the paint, assuring me of a much more even tone. Makeup sealer isn't a necessity, but I prefer using it. Sealer is made by a number of makeup companies and you can get it from almost any theatrical makeup supplier. I will paint this appliance with an alcohol-activated acrylic makeup palette. This is a specialized product that allows you to work with the color in many ways. By activating the colors with isopropyl alcohol, you can spatter, sponge, brush, ink wash, dab, and even airbrush the color onto the appliance and face. I use a meaty rose color all over the exposed muscle and raw flesh. I mix a very thin wash of the color and let it run into all the cracks, crevices, and details. I then use thicker washes and darker colors to build depth in the appropriate areas, adding to the 3D quality of the piece. Don't worry too much about any of the color that gets onto the edges of the torn skin areas. This can easily be cleaned off with alcohol, or, as I like to do, blend it into the flesh edges to add a bit of life and depth to them. I then use a yellowy color to tone some of the structures as if there were fat, tendons, or cartilage. Build up the contrast in stages. Don't rush in with the darkest or brightest colors too quickly. For this makeup, I intend to match the model's existing skin tone rather than making up the entire skin area. Start with a tone that is slightly lighter than the person's actual skin tone. You will bring it down to the correct level as you go on. I build up the tones in thin washes sponged on. I use a blue-gray color, mixed with a base flesh tone, to match the color of the model's skin where he has facial hair. This muted color can really help bring the skin tone to life. I use a brush to flick on tiny spatters of a darker hair color to simulate the ends of hair growing through the actual skin. A brush is also used to add these tiny details. Finally, I use a very thin and pale olive color, lightly sponged onto the flesh areas to tone them in to match the performer's own skin tone. Now it's time for the final touch, and with an appliance like this, that can only mean one thing: blood. I use a few different types of blood to build up a layered effect. Apply them as you would makeup, a bit at a time. The darker tones go in, and then the lighter tones on top. I then add some final punch with a thick, nearly black blood color. Don't be afraid to smudge and smear the blood. Fingerprints, streaks, and spatters would be natural to see on a wound like this. I prefer not to overfill wounds with too much blood, as it all tends to become a red mess. I like to let the sculpture and the shape do their part in adding to the upset of the viewer. We hope you found this video helpful, and as we're often asked this question, well, here's the answer. Yes, you can eat, drink, and smile when wearing these appliances.